everyone, Angelina, Sparkling Diva, and another inspirational video. And this time I would like to talk a little bit about trauma and healing from that. And trauma can be just about anything, right? And it's different for every one of us. What's traumatic to you or me and someone else can be completely different. What is traumatic to me, maybe if it happened to you, you would just simply brush it off, it wouldn't affect you. Maybe you get angry once or you cry and then, it doesn't bother you in the slightest, while I am affected for the rest of my life. And that's, there's so many different forms of trauma. And, but it's almost everyone has suffered some form of trauma in life, and a lot, if not all, of these traumas go back to childhood, which is why there is so much inner child healing and talk about inner child, etc., etc. Because when we are a child, until we are about 6-7 years old, we absorb everything that we hear, that we see, that we're exposed to as true. We haven't got any filters yet. That's because of the brain, of how the brain functions. We are in theta brainwaves then, until we are 6-7 years old. And we are just recording. And that's especially made that way, designed that way, because we have to learn how our specific society is construed, so that we know the rules and regulations and the norms and the values. So there is a purpose for that. But it does mean that if we are exposed to something unpleasant, it goes in and then it sticks, because that goes into the subconscious directly, and you will carry that with you for the rest of your life. And because it is in the subconscious, which we can't really access just like that, that's quite logical then, right? That you do. Sometimes it can happen that you don't even know what the cause is of something, because the cause is in the subconscious. So then you have to get I suppose that's why people choose hypnosis sometimes, because then you can access the subconscious. There's other ways as well, by the way, and there's a lot of therapies around that. But anyhow, don't want to talk about that. The reason I'm now doing this is because I got triggered myself. That's the beauty of trauma. It's still somewhere lingering in your system. It can actually be embedded in your cells, even, right, in your body. It can then in time sometimes be the cause of chronic ailments. There's an energetic cause behind every disease and ailment. And anyhow, I'm not going to digress. Go back, Angel. But that means you can get triggered. If something similar happens that caused the trauma, you will get triggered. And you also have a specific survival technique, a coping mechanism, to then get through whatever scares you, right, triggers you. And again, that can vary what the coping mechanism is. Addictions are part of that as well, because addictions is part of self-soothing. That's why addictions are so bloody difficult to get rid of, because it's part of your coping mechanism of soothing yourself, of caring for yourself, however stupid it seems, because usually they are very damaging to us, right? But so I got triggered. And one of the things that can happen when you are traumatized, and 70% of the population is traumatized one way or another, right? And so there's a lot of people, there's as good as everyone almost, And I found out that one thing that can typically happen if you get triggered is that you start, for instance, blaming and judging and then feel guilty. And after I had gotten triggered, I found out right after that, and I thought, bloody hell, that's exactly what happened to me. Exactly what happened to me. I was angry, I was livid, and and I was blaming the person. No one had done anything bad to me, by the way, right? It was just a situation where I got triggered, and I was so angry, and I was full of blame, and I actually vented that online on social media when I got home. And that was about 2 hours later, go figure, I was still in that vibration of anger and hurt, right? Because that's underneath anger is hurt most of the time. And I was actually deeply hurt, and that trauma, right? The pain of that trauma. And because of that, I was starting to lash out. I was starting to blame, and I wanted to get even kind of thing. And so when I found out that that is part of a reaction when you get triggered, I thought, bloody hell, yeah, I did that. And then you feel guilty. And there is the guilt. And I know now that whatever happened, what it was about, I'm not going to tell you, it's a long story, but that my reasoning was okay. My reasoning was correct because I started doubting that as well. Right? And then your self-esteem starts to wobble, you know, and but it's there is a way. There are many ways, of course, how you can deal with it. What people who have been traumatized need mostly is a sense of safety, and because of that, relationships are very important to people who have been traumatized. I recognize that as well. Because a relationship can offer that safety that you crave, right? A safe haven. And that can be a partner relationship. It can also be any other relationship. Like not being able to let go of your children, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe being too close to your mother or friends or anything, you know. A safety zone, a safety net. And I recognize that myself as well. I haven't had a lot of safety in my childhood. So for me, that is a very important thing. But you can learn to create that sense of feeling safe, of feeling love, of whatever it is that you need. And what you can then do is go to a time in your life, a situation where you did feel safe, where you did feel you could be you, where you could relax and just let it, didn't have to keep up all these shields and masks, and where you could just be, and where you were accepted, where you felt secure and supported and safe. And now this can be with a partner. It can be a time, a moment somewhere in your childhood. For me, there's also moments when I was out in nature, where I felt, when I was very, very connected with nature, when I was working with, shamanism more than I am now, actually. And I felt so connected to nature, the trees and nature spirits and animals and all that, and I could feel that around me. I could feel energies of trees as well. And if I was then out in nature and you just sit there in the sun and it's nice and it's warm and nothing can harm you there really then, and then you can be completely safe. I've had moments like that, many moments like that in nature. So it can be anything. And maybe for you, if you haven't got a lot of people around you with whom you had such feelings, moments, it can also be your dog or your cat or a horse. or any other animal, but it can also be a spiritual being. Like for me, what works a lot is Mother Mary, and because her love is truly unconditional, and she's like a warm embrace that holds you, then I feel so loved and held and safe. And if I have Archangel Uriel there, who is in the charge of your solar plexus, which for me is a very sore spot, right? Inner strength and self-esteem and interacting with the environment and all that stuff. Fear is absorbed in the solar plexus. So oftentimes I think for people who have been traumatized, the solar plexus is also a very important thing, an important chakra, and maybe to work with very good. And Archangel Uriel is in the charge of that chakra. I've always felt drawn to him. I could never relate to Archangel Michael, what everyone else did, call on Michael, right, for protection and safety. I couldn't relate to that at all. And I could relate to Archangel Uriel, and now looking back, I think his energy is what I needed more. And anyhow, so you can also call on a being like that, or your guardian angel, or a deceased person. Like for me, for instance, my father passed away 5 years ago, almost now, my God. And with him, he is one of the few people that I've known in my life with whom I felt safe. Absolutely, totally, 100% safe and accepted and seen. And so many moments in my childhood, beautiful moments where I could feel that way, were with my dad. And but find something like that, and then visualize that and completely go into that moment. I also have a moment like that with an ex-partner, but then you must be careful when you go for that you do not start to attach to that partner again, right? Because it should in actual fact be more something of yourself, just of you, and not something that hinges on, right? And so if that feels too much like, then don't go for a moment with a partner. I can separate that, so I can do that and just tune in to the feeling that I had in that moment. So in that sense, unrelated to him, right? It was about my feeling. I hope I'm explaining that properly here. So then visualize that moment, feel it, feel yourself in that moment and feeling completely wonderful. And then think of something that you would then wish for, would want in that moment, which you can then after that use as an affirmation, kind of like a prayer. And for me, now it's actually what did you really feel in that moment? And you then, if you visualize that, you really have to just relax and sink into the moment, surrender to it, just feel it. And what was the essence of what that feeling? Why did you feel so good? What's the essence? And for me, that is, I felt completely safe and completely loved. I was completely me, and I was home. That's what went through me. I was home. And then you can, if you know what it is for you, then you can write that down or just memorize it, and then you can use that as that whenever you get triggered again, you can call on that affirmation, prayer, whatever you want to call it, to recall that vibration, to to get back into that vibration of feeling so good. Can be a very quick way to get out of that triggered state of being where you just go, and to calm yourself down, to soothe yourself, to go back to a higher vibration, and maybe not a very high vibration, but better, out of that anxiety. And for me, it is, may I feel completely safe. May I feel completely loved. And I wrote down a few more that for me, it's with these things you always have to play around with it a little bit, to feel what works. If for instance, you would say, may I feel completely safe, and that doesn't do anything for you, well, that's not the right thing for you to say. Then you must dig a little deeper, right, and find out what it is. What does it for you? That's why you would have to really get into it with that visualization, so you can really feel, and go deep and fine tune, and then feel, if you would say, may I feel completely, for instance, at home. And to you is like, all right, yeah, great, that's not the one for you, okay? Dig deeper, find what it is that gives you that feeling of, that's it, yes, I like that. That's what you want. That's the ones you want. And you can go for a few, that's okay. Don't go for too many. Because I noticed I've written down 6 in the end, and then the energy, the vibration, the essence gets lost. So I'm not doing that anymore. And also, sorry, I also wrote down like, may I feel totally wanted, because in that moment I felt totally wanted. But at the same time of saying that, it triggers this thing of, I'm not wanted. It triggers the negativity again. Dump it if you got something like that. That's not a good one either, right? So it's quite logical. And then it does really work, my energy system was entirely upside down after I got triggered. It was amazing. I'd done some work myself as well after that, and it was good, but my solar plexus was completely noodle-doodle. It didn't know what to do, where to go. It was actually aching, seriously aching. It was horrible. At the moment it's okay, I can touch it again. I could barely touch it yesterday. It was so painful. And just now I went for a walk, and I just kept repeating, like, may I feel totally safe. May I feel completely loved. But then with awareness, right? It's not something you just mindlessly mumble, because that's also not going to work. You have to really feel it. And maybe when you're busy or when you're out for a walk or whatever, it's not the best thing to do. Walking is okay, because then you can focus on it completely. But like when you're driving the car, you can't, because you also have to drive. Right? So, but play with it a little bit. Find for yourself this some moment where you felt completely wonderful. What works for me, actually even better than the one with the partner, is when I was sitting. We used to call that the shell beach, because it was a beach, but there was no sand to be seen. It was only shells, larger shells, like sort of like that, oyster shells, and the beach was completely covered with it, right? And we used to sit on there, and then in the sun, sometimes for hours on end, watching out, looking out over the ocean, the sea, and sailboats, and yeah, just being there. It was just really totally being and feeling so utterly safe and free, because in front of me was this, wow, the sea and the boats and wonderful, no houses. Hardly ever did anyone come there, because it was quite remote. And yeah, that works for me as well. So see what you can come up with, and get into it, really feel it, step back into that moment where you felt so wonderful, so floating, so free, surrendering, held, loved, and safe. and then feel what it was that you really, really felt in that moment, so you can make an affirmation out of that. Right? And then you can do that when you get triggered, to help you find your feet faster again and move out of that anxiety and then feeling guilty and blame and lashing out and all that stuff, you know, or whatever it is you do when you get in that state. In any case, I hope it was helpful, and yeah, that's what I'm doing this for, right? It's not that I need to vent and tell you what happened to me, but I want to help you with what I'm experiencing myself, and I come across myself, and it is possible that at a moment a lot of us get triggered again, because of there's still this thing going on of letting go, and for me it's like going deeper layers. So you might recognize that as well. And because everything always goes in layers, right? It's not that you can just rip it out in one go. It hardly ever worked that way. And I've dealt with this thing so many times. I've worked on it so often, so many times. And then I find out that there is still parts of it there, but it's deeper layers. So in any case, thank you for watching. I hope it's helpful. I'd like to hear that as well, of course, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.